Hello everyone, Kaoz here, and welcome to another old school RuneScape video. In the previous one, we went over the most important updates since the inception of old school RuneScape, so new and returning players can be up to date with some of the greatest additions the game has seen, and even some upcoming content. Today we will go over every boss in old school RuneScape, ranking them from easiest to hardest, so you guys know what to aim for in terms of the progression of your account. If you enjoyed today's video, we have a lot of content like this on the channel, so a subscription with notifications on would be greatly appreciated. You can also check the links in the description below to join our wonderful Discord community. And if you hit the like button, your next boss kill will give you a pet 100% guaranteed by Mod Ash himself. Now, just like with every other opinion video, I have two quick disclaimers for you guys, as I am pretty certain that even if this bossing ladder is fairly accurate, there will be some people who disagree on some of the bosses. So let's get these out of the way fairly quickly. Number one, the bosses are ranked in terms of their difficulty and not the requirements to kill them. And number two, all of these bosses are ranked based on the common way of doing them. Now, truth be told, as I am not a PVM god, this video was done in collaboration with the Mighty Clan, and also their Discord server, with contributions from W83, Touche, Mighty, Exeldon, Bro Jay-Z, RTGDK, Doctorn92, and finally EP. You can find their links on screen and in the description below. So, with that out of the way, let's begin the ultimate bossing ladder in old school RuneScape. We will start with a boss you can't even die at, and our first stop is going to be Temporos. And yes, even skilling bosses will make it into the list. Now, even if it takes a few trips to get the hang of this boss, and it's also slightly click intensive, the fact that you cannot even die here unless you bring things that deliberately damage you, make Temporos the easiest boss in old school RuneScape in my opinion. The Winter Toad is up next, which is actually a dangerous activity, and if you have high HP, you will need to eat a lot through certain parts of the kill, which makes this slightly annoying. The hard part about this boss, however, is reading the chat in this degenerate place, so definitely come here with public chat off and entity hider on RuneLite. Up next we have two obvious ones, but right after we have Obor. Even on free-to-play and let's say base 50s or 60 stats, all you need to do against this boss is pray, hit, and eat whenever you need to. He has two attack types, so you might still take a little bit of damage, but nothing too difficult. Then we have Bryophyta, or Bryophyta, again I don't know how to pronounce that, and this one is slightly more difficult because it can poison you and has a mechanic where she spawns little growthlings, and you can't even damage her without killing them first. Not a huge step in difficulty, but a little bit more convoluted than Obor. We switch things up with the boss, and now we have the Kraken. With the recent fishing explosive update, you need a whopping 3 clicks per kill, and if you have full HP, you don't even need to pay attention to it. Loot here is also incredible, and it's one of the best bosses to start your PVM adventures with. Let's stay in the caves, but this time let's go kill the giant mole. Now, even if you don't have the hard Falador diary, which tells you where the mole digs to, all you need to do is chase it around the nest, pray melee, and hope it doesn't run away from you. And with good RNG and decent gear, you can't do enough damage so it doesn't even escape. Next we have one of my absolute favorite ones, and it is the Barrows Brothers. Now this might be a little bit of a challenge if you are a mid-level account and you don't have great gear. But even with some decent magic bonus, you can get through the crypts quite easily, beating all 6 brothers for your loot. Not a lot of mechanics for this one, but it's also pretty fun. Up next we have the Deranged Archaeologist, and this one is one of the bosses where if you pray correctly and execute the kill properly, you take absolutely 0 damage. But you still need to pay a little bit of attention in order for the kill to go smoothly. Now, if you want to look at how my wife kills this boss with absolutely 0 RuneScape knowledge, go ahead and check out the card that popped out right about now. It's actually a very fun watch. Hespori is up next, and this one is here because even with good gear and RNG, you can still take a little bit of damage. And if you are not paying attention, the Hespori has a special attack that can hit up to 40. Now, even though the kill is super short, it is also slightly click intensive, and you will have to move around a lot throughout the kill. Not only is the Mimic the RNG gatekeeper to the Music Cave, but also it is next on the list. After a few kills, you will get the hang of it pretty quickly, but if you are just learning it, you will see that you will have to run around the room quite a lot, avoiding a lot of purple sweets raining down the arena, and escaping the 3rd age NPCs that are also spawned throughout the kill. And now for the final skilling boss as of the release of this video, we have Zolcano. I originally had this boss lower in the rankings, but the fact that you can take a lot of damage by standing in the dangerous areas throughout the kill makes it moderately more dangerous than the previous bosses we have talked about. But as long as you know where to stand and what to do, you will also take absolutely no damage. Up next we have a few wilderness bosses that, although not as difficult as you might think, the simple fact that they are in the wilderness makes them a bit riskier. Starting with the Crazy Archaeologist, which literally is a copy-paste from the Deranged Archaeologist, but the crazy one was released first. This boss hangs out in around level 23 or 24 wilderness, so it's near a teleport area, or even the ditch if a PKer jumps on you. A wieldy boss that's actually pretty far away from any safe zones is the Kaoz Fanatic. Just like the Deranged and Crazy Archaeologists, as long as you pray correctly and move away from its special attack, you won't take any damage, and the most worrying part about this boss is also the fact that PKers can appear at any moment. Next we have the Chaos Elemental, and this one is even farther away from any safe zones or teleports. It is not that much more difficult than the previous wilderness bosses, but this one is slightly more annoying to kill. Just make sure to bring pies as food and to have slightly less tedious experience. Coming up we have the very first boss in old school RuneScape history, and it is the King Black Dragon. Even if this boss is in a safe instance, and by safe I mean there's no PKers inside, getting there actually takes you to the wilderness, and the kill itself is slightly more challenging than all of the previous bosses. Now, even with the good gear, you will take a fair bit of damage, so your trips won't last incredibly long. Now we have a fun one, and I only put it here because it is on the wiki boss page, and I am talking about the Priffinous Rabbit. Now, I'll be honest with this one, I've never killed it, and when I was doing a bit of research for this video, I found out that you can just use ruby bolts, and you can kind of safe spot it, and then finish it off rather quickly with other weapons. This one is more annoying than challenging, so I guess this is the best place for this one. If not, let me know in the comments below. Starting off the insect-like bosses, we move on to Sarachnis. Now, I have this one here because if you do it traditionally, it can be a little annoying to kill if you don't have good DPS. But as of the time of making this video, there is a crazy method for you to kill it with full Justiciar and the Din's Bulwark, which makes it 100% AFK, and you only have to click to restore prayer since there is an incredibly low chance of it actually damaging you because of the defensive stats of the armor you're wearing. For the next one I have Skotizo, and as long as you have an Arc Light, it can be pretty easy to kill once you assemble a Dark Totem. Now, what makes it annoying though is that if you have bad luck with the hits, you have to run around the arena killing the evil eyeballs for you to damage it properly, and if you don't pray correctly, it can actually hit decently hard. But in terms of mechanics, Skotizo is really not that bad. Next we have the Dagannoth Kings. Now, I know what you're thinking, well Chaos, you can actually safe spot the Dagannoth Rex, and with a T-bow you can kill the Supreme without the others seeing you. But hear me out, if you are just getting the hang of it and killing all of them at once, juggling all three Dagannoths, especially when you enter the room for the first time, can be a little bit overwhelming, and it might take a few trips to get used to. As a whole, the Dagannoth Kings take up this spot on the list, but individually they are really not that bad. Another Slayer boss on the list, this time we have the Grotesque Guardians. In my very personal opinion, these are slightly more difficult than the Dagannoth Kings, especially because there are a few punishing mechanics during the kill, and without decent DPS the trip can go on for quite a bit longer. There are a few more mechanics to remember here in order for the execution to be perfect, but again, nothing extremely difficult. As of the time of making this video, the following three wilderness bosses all have safe spots, which puts them slightly lower on the list, and we will start with Vedion. In my opinion, this one is the easiest one to set up for you to take 0 damage, and once you are safe, you just need to whack it to death, and obviously pray for no PKers. Simply attack it, wait for the puppies to spawn, kill them, turn back, and finish Vedion off. The next one is Venenatis, and this one is slightly more complicated because the safe spot involves a tick-perfect setup, and if you mess it up you basically have to restart, and in the worst case scenario, you have to kill it normally or just hop worlds. Just keep in mind that if something goes wrong, it can hit pretty hard, so watch out for its special attack and be ready to eat. All of these are relatively easy to learn, but in my very personal opinion, by far the weirdest one to set up is Callisto. Not only that, but if he hits you while setting up the safe spot, his max hit is 60 with his special attacks. So by far, this is the most dangerous one. Once you mark your tiles properly and execute the safe spot though, whacking it to death with Verak or even a Vigorous Chain Mace seems like the way to go with this one. For the last wilderness boss we have Scorpia, which is the one that actually hits you back when attacking. If you freeze it while maging, it can be pretty easy, but this boss is right here on the list because it's pretty much the farthest one away from any safe spots, and if chased by PKers, you will have to run a whole ton to avoid death, but this boss itself is fairly chill even without safe spots. The Thermonuclear Smoke Devil is next on the list, and if you are using the redemption method, this boss is incredibly chill and you can get so many kills per trip if you fill up your inventory with prayer or super restore potions. Now, there's a much sweatier method which involves 2 accounts, and the special attack transfer, which might make it more click intensive, but the traditional method puts it right here. Something that is not as chill, however, is the Calphite Queen. And if you have the Elite Desert Diary, you can get many kills per hour by running to your house and restore special attack between kills. But one thing you have to be aware of is the fact that it hits like an absolute truck with both magic and ranged, and even with good RNG you can get around 2, 3 or even 4 kills per inventory. As long as you camp high HP and spec it down with a Dragon Warhammer, it really isn't that bad. Moving on to another Slayer boss, we have Cerberus, and even without a Spectral Spirit Shield, the only thing you have to worry about here are the souls which hit with all 3 combat styles, and the pools of lava Cerberus releases every now and then. Once you have the hang of it, the big red puppy becomes fairly easy challenge on your way to those primordial crystals. One of my least favorite bosses is the Abyssal Sire. Now, this may be a little biased, but I think we've all experienced the fact that the poison pools below you disappear at some point, and if you are not counting ticks in your head, there will be a point during the kill in which you will take damage seemingly out of nowhere. The Sire is here not because it's difficult, but because the kill goes on for too long, the spam on the screen will make things pretty weird and overwhelming. Jad is the following boss on the list, and if we just had to kill Jad, this could be slightly lower on the list, especially for experienced players. But the fact that you have to go through the entire fight caves to even meet him is slightly more annoying to deal with. Once you get a few tries, you will be able to get a fire cape on command, and with good DPS you can clear the caves in less than 30 minutes. Starting off the God Wars dungeon bosses, we have Commander Ziliana. And the reason why she is the easiest one of the bunch is that with a T-bow or even a crossbow with good bolts, all you need to do is run around the room, turning every now and then to hit the boss from afar. The minions might make the kill a bit annoying, but if you bring a blowpipe and bones to Peaches, you will take barely any damage and you can stay here for quite a long time. One that is slightly more difficult and annoying, however, is Kriara. There's a pretty good method for you to kill it while taking little to no damage using Chinchompas, but even if you kill it normally with a crossbow or even T-bow, what makes this boss annoying is how hard it can hit. However, mechanics-wise, as long as you stand in the corner of the room, there's not a lot to worry about. Just kill it, heal up the minions, and you are good to go for another kill. Next we have the Alchemical Hydra, and this one goes before the rest of the God Wars dungeon bosses because after a few trips, and if you know all of the mechanics, you can kill this boss without taking any damage. If you set up your floor tiles on Runelight, you will know exactly where to stand and when to make this boss the easiest it can be for amazing profit per hour. This one is up here because I personally don't have a lot of KC, and I have seen so many people having a lot of trouble getting started with this one. And I am of course talking about Zulrah. Now, it seems like once you have the rotations down, it's all about standing in the right tiles throughout the kill. But even before you get to that point, it's straight up annoying, and don't take my word for it. After the introduction of the new death mechanics, Zulrah is the only boss to avoid death feast once you have less than 50 KC. So, you tell me. We are moving up to Vorkath, and even though I personally do not have any problem with this one, I could see some newcomers being a little bit intimidated by it. Even with good gear for either melee or ranged, its other attacks can still hit pretty hard, and it's mostly down to RNG. Not only that, but as we all know it, Vorkath has several special attacks which are pretty punishing, and even a fireball attack which can kill you in one hit if you are not paying attention. Not super difficult, but a lot to keep track of during kill. Going back to God Wars Dungeon, we have General Grardor. Now, again, if doing one of the new fancy 5-0, 6-0, or whatever 2-0 method, you can do this boss without taking any damage. But if you are doing it traditionally, you won't be able to get a lot of KC even if you are praying correctly. Grardor has a devastating special attack that hits like a truck, which makes it more difficult to practice until you get used to the prayer switches. Our final God Wars dungeon boss is Krill Tusaroth, and this one may also be slightly biased because every time I go in there, this guy hits like an absolute truck as well, and my trips don't really last very long. Now, I know it's mostly has to do with me not being very good at PvM, but I am willing to bet a lot of people may agree with the fact that he has to be the most difficult boss of this area. If you don't agree, let me know why in the comments below. Also locked behind the Song of the Elves, we have the Gauntlet in its normal version. Again, this is mostly personal opinion, but the fact that you have to do a bit of preparation inside the Gauntlet before the Hunlev takes a bit to get used to. It is a great stepping stone towards high-level PvMing and decision-making, and the fact that it's the closest thing to RuneScape 3 dungeoneering in OSRS also makes it a pretty cool addition. Following up, we have the Fosani's Nightmare, and yes, just like the Gauntlet, Normal and Solo Nightmare will be given their own spot. This boss has so many cool and punishing mechanics, but once you master all of them with decent gear, you can kill the Nightmare in, let's say, 10, 9 or even 8 minutes, which also makes it one of the most profitable activities in the game at this particular moment. Only if you happen to get lucky with its special drops. Up next we have the Corporeal Beast. Now, if you are killing it in a group, this may not be as difficult, but oh boy, doing it solo is an absolute pain in the ass. In order for you to even have a chance at killing this boss, you have to do a very specific method involving the Arclight, the Dragon Warhammer, and the Bandus Godsword in order for Corp to become what people call a chicken with a 2000 HP. So this one is up here mostly because the setup is rather annoying more than difficult. Chambers of Xeric normal mode is next, and truth be told, I only have 7 Chambers KC, so you might be like, then why the hell are you even ranking it here? But it seems like all of the rooms and the boss encounters through the raid are not as demanding until you get to the Great Olm. Once you get the hang of Olm's special attacks and mechanics, it's smooth sailing from here. So Raids 1 is what opens the Grandmaster tier in its ranking. Next on the list is the Nightmare of Ashihama in its regular version. There are just so many things to keep track of during the kill that getting the hang of this boss is a lot more convoluted than any other bosses which seem just as demanding. It also has a lot more HP scaled up with the number of players inside, but I think we can all agree that it is worth it if you see some Inquisitor pieces or some orbs on the ground. And starting off the top 5, we have the Theater of Blood. The reason why it's higher than Chambers is because TOB is more punishing to mistakes, and the fact that it is a dangerous death makes it slightly more challenging for players looking to get into this activity. This time around, you need to memorize and execute mechanics for 6 bosses, or 8 if you are counting all 3 of Versix's phases, and you are good to go on your way to some purple chests. Although, it's obviously easier said than done. Coming in at number 4, we have the Corrupted Gauntlet. Now, why is this ranked so much higher than the normal Gauntlet? Well, simply because almost every aspect of this activity is more difficult than this one. All of the monsters have increased stats, you only have 7.5 minutes to prepare instead of 10, and the Corrupted Hunlev has increased stats and damage, as well as an extra tornado during its special attack. Number 3 belongs to the Chambers of Xeric challenge mode. And not much needs to be said in this one other than the increased difficulty will make it an amazing challenge, well, sorry for the redundancy, for people looking for the pet transmog, for those cute and the tiny versions of the bosses inside the chambers, and also for those twisted ornament kits. The runner-up spot belongs to the Theater of Blood hard mode, and just like the Corrupted Gauntlet, this harder version of the activity gives all of the bosses increased stats and new mechanics you have to watch out for. These are obviously way more punishing, so it's not for the faint of heart. But the increased chance at unique items make this version of the Theater of Blood more tempting for super experienced PvM players. And finally, to no one's surprise, the Inferno comes in at number 1. And obviously, I don't even have to elaborate on it. Zuck has been the most difficult challenge in Old School RuneScape since its release in 2017, and will most likely stay there for the foreseeable future. I honestly don't think Raids 3 or even Nex will be more difficult than the Inferno, but obviously only time will tell. Regardless, no other boss in Old School RuneScape, at least as of the release of this video, will be a bigger challenge than Tiskal Zuck. As even if you know all of the minions, the spawns, the mechanics, RNG still plays a big factor and execution has to be done flawlessly for you to get your hands on an Infernal Cape. So that's pretty much it. What do you guys think of this bossing ladder? Is it good? Is it garbage? Let me know in the comments below. Another huge shout out to the Mighty Clan for lending a hand with this video, as I guarantee my previous bossing ladder was very different from this one, and it might have landed me a few hate comments calling me garbage. But hey, I am still expecting a few of those down below, so get commenting and let me know. A massive thank you to all my channel members, specifically the legend, that is Josh B for being part of the Infernal tier, and Mr. Moldybot for being part of the Nezi tier. Also a huge shout out to Rider X, or Ritter X, I don't know how to pronounce that, Ritter X of 58, because I forgot to include him in the credits for the last two videos. But now we are up to date with all of the sponsors. If you would like to monetarily support this channel, make sure to click the join button below to see all of the cool perks and rewards you can get for pledging to the channel. There are things from exclusive Discord roles, all the way to me coaching you in video making, having access to my editing files, uncut commentary, and much more. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one, where this time we will go over the most expensive gear in old school RuneScape over the years. Have a great week, and I will see you then. Peace!